Welcome to Something to Marvel About, a podcast where we discuss and dissect the Marvel releases. My name's English Dave, and joining me to figure out who's a Sentinel and who's not is my co-host Andrew. What's up, Andrew?
What's up, Dave and X-Men fans?
We're here to talk about X-Men 97, Episode 8, Tolerance is Extinction, Part 1. The synopsis is as follows. Bastion unleashes his master plan, which involves turning humanity against mutant kind by revealing a new breed of Sentinels which target and pick off the X-Men in small groups. Meanwhile, the Summers family works together and uncovers Bastion's origins. This episode, like many episodes before, deals with comic storylines from the past. In this instance, 1996 Operation Zero Tolerance. We now know what OZT means, or as Americans say, OZT. And 2001's E is for Extinction. And I actually think they did a better job of the comics. There's some elements of those comics that are good, some I don't like, but this did a great job of mixing them together and giving us something better. But before we go into it, Andrew, spoiler-free thoughts.
Yeah, another episode jam-packed with goodies and goodness. I think it was an excellent episode of showing the magnitude of the problems they're facing, the magnitude of the solutions they're going to have to find, and also there are just so many Easter eggs, right? Like, this show honestly keeps surpassing itself each episode. For me, personally, I'm amazed.
I agree with you. I think this episode, we know since episode 5, we thought it couldn't get even crazier, and it just continues to ramp up and up and up right up to episode 8. And we're seeing now, this is the final arc. This is part 1 of 3, 2 more episodes after this. And we're seeing, the end game, so to speak. Yep. We're seeing Bastion's plan come to fruition, which is crazy. This does a good job that even if we know the comics, there's still so many surprises for us. We see Bastion's origin. The X-Men get tested as individuals and as a group, like Xavier's dream.
Yep.
There's one thing to kind of say, this is my dream. We want harmony between humans and mutants. But it's another thing to try and make it happen when so many things are coming up against you and pushing up against you. This episode also, we've talked about in the past, this doubles down on the idea of what does family mean? Family is not necessarily who you're born into. Sometimes it's a choice of who you choose to be around. Those questions get challenged as well. And I think they did a good job of also giving us real world parallels that we can kind of relate to. Even though it's taking storylines from the past, like something happens in this episode that a character talks about the idea that sometimes a lot of this trauma that we go through as humans, as humanity, unfortunately, it's repeated trauma. It gets repeated so often that we almost, those of us who have the privilege of living, quote unquote, in a better life, as opposed to those who are suffering, when we see suffering, we feel bad. We look at him, I'm so sorry, and then we move on to the next thing. And this episode kind of doubles down on that. How does the impact of trauma really have effect when we're so quick to move on to the next thing? We feel bad, but I'm so sorry. Let's go on. And I love that this deals with all of that. Fantastic episode once again. And on top of that, this gives us some crazy, awesome action sequences.
Oh my God.
Some of the best we have seen. I was just amazed and just wowed by some of the things they've been able to do. They really are flexing the muscles in terms of, we have a bigger budget in animation this time and we're going to use it. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. All right, let's get into the episode itself. First of all, the opening credits they're not giving us as many surprises in the opening credits because we're coming towards the end. But we have the return of Charles in the opening credits, as well as one of the episodes that the showrunner Bo DeMaio said that we should watch was a 2-part episode in the original series called One Man's Worth. And in the opening credits, we see a clip of One Man's Worth, and that's where we see Bishop with alternate Logan and Storm. I thought that was a nice little touch. But I do recommend, if you haven't seen One Man's Worth, go back and watch it, because they do give us little teasers on Bastion's storyline, which has been seeded from the old series, and we've been seeing teasers of Bastion throughout this series. We just didn't know about it. He is the mastermind behind everything else. But before we get into that, we're going to start off with the relationship and dynamic between the Summers family. The episode opens up with, Cyclops is feeling some kind of way about finding out that Cable is his son. He feels he's betrayed Cable. I sent him to the future, and it was supposed to be a better future, but apparently it wasn't as good as he thought it was. And then later on, we get the sequence with the Summers family vacation in the car, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. What do you think of the Summers dynamic in this episode?
personally, I feel like Cable's a little spoiled, but I think it's fair, right? Because he grew up in like a dystopian future without his parental figure. Because he just
Yeah.
seems like he's like a teenager moping around. He's shooting bottle caps. He's like whining. He's like, don't tell me what to do, Dad. But I think it's funny to see because it's this really old guy. Technically, he's like what? He looks older than his dad, and he's
Right.
having to like respect his dad, and
Right.
especially with Jean, because Jean is like not the mom, but she is the mom, right? So she's like, boy, stop fighting. It's such a funny dynamic. I think the Summers are one of my favorite fictional dysfunctional families, like functional dysfunctional, right? Because I love them to bits. Because Cyclops, as much as I may give him a hard time, I feel like he's the epitome of like just doing it afraid. I like not being sure of yourself, but like I mean, this is my responsibility. I gotta do it. I'll do it, right? I may
Yeah.
struggle, but I'm still gonna keep going. So yeah, I really enjoyed it all the way up until their superhero landing.
Oh,
Um,
perfect.
R.I.P. to the Porsche. But other than that, yeah, I thought it's really good. Just a real setup of like real problems. Like these guys may have powers, maybe from the future, but like you still feel a certain way towards your parents, right? Or like towards your like. I just love that dynamic still exists even in this super fantasy world.
Even when Jean tells him to put a seatbelt on,
Yeah,
being
right.
all mom to him, he's like, oh, don't tell me what to do, you know. And speaking of Jean, I do like that. She struggles and talks to Nightcrawler later on in the episode about the fact that she has Madeline's memories. She's still struggling with between what memories are mine and what memories are Madeline's. And Nightcrawler even says to her, like, if you feel the emotion, you know, does it really matter? You still feel the emotion, you still know how you felt, And I thought that was absolutely brilliant kind of talk from him when he tells her that, about his family history. Mystique is his mother. She abandoned him, you know, found out that Rogue is his adopted sister. He could have
Yeah,
easily had issue with Rogue, but they chose to be family together. And Jean is going through similar things. Cable may not be biologically her son, but she still feels the emotions, still feels exactly emotional attachments to him. And I love, previously in the season, I wasn't sure where they were going with the Jean Scott narrative. Things that happen to them, they're kind of pulling apart, and it's
yeah,
funny and ironic in a good storytelling way that it's Cable, this illegitimate son of hers,
the,
from a different woman,
yeah,
technically, is what brings them together.
yeah.
So they become this kind of family unit, that great Summers moment, and you can see them coming together within the fight. Jean controlling the car, father and son are just shooting away. Absolutely brilliant. And as much as the Porsche gets destroyed, you needed an explosion in the
Wait,
background.
we did,
It
we
just makes
did.
the superhero landing great.
It did. It was
And
great.
and it's one Porsche as opposed to the third
Yeah.
Blackbird being destroyed, which Beast is going to be set about.
So funny. I like that they touched on that because I was just like, wait, how many do they have? It's like, that's
I thought
great.
that was absolutely brilliant. What I like earlier on in the episode when it starts off when Cable is talking to them about Bastion and giving them brief history on Bastion, you know, uh, um, he gets visually more connections to the MCU because of his timeline.
Uh-huh.
The branches look like the time branches of the
Okay.
TVA, and even Beast, uh, um, Logan says to Cable, "Why didn't you stop Genosha?" And Cable's like, "I've been trying many, many times, so
Yeah.
many times that I almost gave up, but something pulls me away." And Beast is like, "Well, that's because as the Kamatage says, the city of Kamatage, for those who don't
Strange.
know, Doctor Strange, yes, one of the laws they talk about is that they are such things as absolute points in time. And for those of you who watch Marvel What If, there is an episode with Doctor Strange
Mhm.
that talks about absolute points in time. And I love that. It's a great way to kind of connect this to the larger
Yep.
MCU. Also, the idea that, there was a time where we thought, oh, Cable's involved, so they're going to go back in time and stop Genosha. This is telling us that, nope, Genosha
Yeah, like
happened,
that's not happening.
you know, it's not getting fixed. Gambit is dead. And, no one's coming back. Technically, Magneto wasn't brought back because he wasn't killed.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that nobody is coming back, and that's how it is. We find out about Bastion's past. I want to ask you, Bastion. It's different from the comics. The comics is slightly different. This one, he was a mutant, and again, I told everyone to go watch the episode. What's it called?
One man's it.
One Man's Worth,
Yeah.
because that's where we see the robot
Nimrod. Yeah.
Nimrod. And in this episode, it tells us that Nimrod, a piece of him was left behind, and he went into a human who had a baby, who was part mutant, and gave us Bastion. What do you think of Bastion's origin story?
I like because one thing I'm really enjoying the show with is that it feels like they're using the wealth of their IP, right? So there's a comic story, there's this story, there's that story, but like this connects with the old X-Men show, but they're free to use the comic set to weave together whatever story they want, right? So I thought it was a
Yeah.
really cool story, just like taking it for what it is, because it kind of like made me be like, oh, okay, I could see how that would happen, like a future nanobot infecting a man, and then he has like a child, so the child is like psycho nanobot, crazy, but it's organic. So it just felt like I, I enjoyed it. I think it's like a very like good connection between fine. The best way to actually get rid of you humans is to merge the AI nanotech with with the organics. And
Oh,
Bastion just he's such a cool character. I think he has good stage presence, right? I feel like
yeah, yeah,
whenever he's on, even there are many people that can like kind of talk down to Sinister, which I also enjoy.
yeah.
Right? I really enjoy that. You can tell Sinister really does not like him. He claims he's using him, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, we'll see who's using who. But
Oh,
yeah, I thought it was a really interesting story. Even as far back as like when Jean was in the house, and I think one of the pictures that he drew on the wall, she had a vision of him drawing. Right,
yeah,
the fact that this show is given like I'm definitely gonna have to at the end of the season rewatch this entire season and maybe
oh,
rewatch the original show because I just love the fact that everything connects. Even like you said, with some of the like real MCU connections as well. But yeah, just speak specifically on Bastion, I thought just for reading it or seeing it on the TV and told this way, I thought it was a
oh,
really good story and like a worthy villain, right? Like it feels like yeah, this is centuries of intelligence, right? Don't feel bad
oh.
that you're getting smacked about X-Men. Like this has been in the works from the past, from the future. Like it's not just you didn't just wake up all of a sudden, but like I thought that was cool.
Yeah, no, I like the characterization of him. By one criticism, I will say, and this is just very much a nitpick. I wish we spent more time in his past to fully understand his point of view. Yeah, like I can kind of understand it a little bit by filling out myself.
Yeah,
But when you get a good villain where you're like, like Magneto and things like that, and maybe they don't want us to
but that's
humanize
it.
him,
Yeah,
you know, but just to get a little bit more on why he would turn his own mother, this whole town, into
yeah,
Sentinels. Like, what? This man is crazy. Or maybe that's the point to showcase that he is kind of crazy. He says, it's not genocide, it's time management.
yeah.
It's like that.
This is a great line though. He has some great open liners. Not gonna lie, because
Oof.
I'm like, oh well,
Oh.
yeah.
He says, in 100 years, mutants outnumber humans 10 to 1, and generations later, human extinction. It's like the scary ozone stuff in the news. Act today and save tomorrow. Enter Operation Zero Tolerance. Trask Sentinels, well, they were too blunt. Mutants spot him a mile away. We need something deadly, but discreet. Before today, this fellow was your average Joe, with all these mutant-loving people like Joe turned to dial up chat rooms to speak freely, to connect. Builders lay off a dozen workers and hire one mutant with the strength of 10 men. What's a taxi driver supposed to do when a teleporter gets you there in a blink? The human community is scared. Of course they are. They've been told over and over again that the future is leaving them behind. But I invite them to be relevant again. Ooh, I love that moment with Val
So
Kilmer,
good.
who, by the way, we were talking about the fact that she might not be as good as she seems she is. She's evil, but evil sort of because she claimed she didn't know it was going to go that far. She was used herself. What I like about Bastion's narrative is that when it comes to explaining how the Sentinels were created, he says, certain humans felt, disenfranchised. They felt left behind. It's like, real world history where
Mhm.
the Chinese or African Americans were in America and used for certain jobs, and you get white Americans feeling like, oh, they're taking all our
And
jobs
Tomato
away,
Toes, yeah.
blah, blah, blah. They can do better labor. These are real world connections. But he's also said that even though I didn't tell them how far this experiment went, these were people who made choices
Yeah,
to have something done to them,
yeah.
including reporter Trish.
That shocked
So
me.
it's people who felt some kind of way beforehand. It's not just random people.
Yeah.
What do you think of this whole idea of using humans who already feel some kind of way towards mutants as sentinels?
It's so brilliant in terms of a villain perspective, right? Because it's just like, especially the way they all just started like activating. The Trish one shocked me. I definitely gasped, right? Like when she sucker punched Beast, and I think she she bent his finger. I was like, no, and there's no way. I think again. much as I like the good guys, I'm always here for a well thought out villain plan, right? I'm tired of just the regular like, we're gonna take the nuclear plant and blow it up. No, like I like when like they really laid out these plans and like what better
Yep.
way than to infect humans? Because again, I feel like especially with the main like Nimrod master mode like ideology, like they would love to actually turn the entire human race into sentinels too, right? So it's like
Yeah.
two battles with one, right? It's like we're
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
rid of the humans and the mutants. Like that's perfect, literally perfect.
And for Bastion, you know, it's not like he's not one of those villains that's like, oh, everyone else is going to suffer. He's like, no, my own mother too.
Yeah.
My own town too. There's,
Well,
there's no
nope,
favoritism.
nope.
You know, no one's special. You get it too. You get it as well. And I was just like, damn. And the thing is, he knew the X-Men were going to come because even the mother was like, oh, my son told me you were coming.
Mhm.
So it's like, ooh, she wasn't even trying to hide anything away. You know, everything is out in the open. And we also get finally the attack. Started talking about that. The attack on the mansion. We get great sequences with Nightcrawler, Beast. I mean, good Nightcrawler, Logan, and even a sequence where Morph turns into Juggernaut. What did you think of that sequence?
So let's go in order, right?
Yes, let's do it.
First of all, Morph. It's always nice to see him transform into somebody else and also do absolutely nothing. It's just
It still confuses me though.
yeah.
Every time he transforms to someone, I have to think, wait, did I miss something? Oh yeah, it's Morph. Every time.
I know that's why they're doing it. They just like they want to keep us on our toes. I'm just always like, great, bro, you distracted them for 2 seconds. But that's all fine. But no, starting with Wolverine first, because his sequence in the sky, um,
Brilliant.
it was brilliant. Because I feel like one of my biggest issues and grabs with Wolverine, right, is I feel like he doesn't utilize his skill set effectively, right? Like the
Yeah,
times when
yeah,
he's meant to slash, he doesn't slash, and other times he's just like he brings out his claws and takes them back, and then like he always feels like he's never like going all out, or he doesn't often have a
yeah,
villain that he can go all out in, right? He can't really be slicing
yeah.
up human. But it was just crazy because he's in the sky and he hacked one guy, hacked another. And my wife was like, "Wait, aren't those humans?" And I was like,
You're
"Wait."
like, I don't care.
But then I was like, "Yeah, you can't expect a guy who can fly to be in the air, be like, oh, let me not kill this person." So it was great to
Just
just
try
see
to keep
him.
me.
Yeah, like he went absolutely ham, and that was great. And then him landing with his little combo with Nightcrawler. Um, I don't know, some of the best animation of TV I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a bold statement, but literally we literally had to rewind. Like I'm talking about when he Wolverine stabbed the guy and Nightcrawler vamped the two of them, and we
Oh,
just
that's
see
so good.
it was the perfect 5 second sequence, right, for us to,
Yeah,
especially with the Nightcrawler's very cool, like look back at it like he was like, Wolverine, I know you see that, but I'll talk to you later. Yeah,
yeah.
you don't worry about that right now. It was so perfectly done. Plus the Nightcrawler with the sword. I
Oh, I loved it.
I thought it would be hard to make me accept that Gambit is in here, right? But Nightcrawler
Yeah,
has done. He's even like he's done even more than I thought, right? Both his speeches and his
yeah,
action sequences now have cemented me more. I literally said it. She's like, "Oh, he's one of my favorite characters now," and I was like,
yeah,
that's great," because I think a lot of us we remember the movie, the live action movies. I think Nightcrawler was kind of done. I think it
yeah,
was done really well in those movies. Right? The White House
yeah,
scene was great, but this
yeah,
has
yeah.
now. I wouldn't say better, but at least equal for me. This has now gone up as like a great showcase of Nightcrawler. But please tell me your thoughts on the entire sequence.
No, I thought it was brilliantly done. Again, we're starting with Logan's falling and fighting. What I like about that is that it really, like you said, it taps into his abilities. You know, we know that Logan is very hard to kill. He's near indestructible. So when he's falling from the sky, that's not he's just fighting. He's not
Yeah,
thinking that I'm falling
yeah,
because it doesn't matter.
yeah,
You know, I'm going to survive the fall. Let me just take out as many as I
yep,
can with me as I'm falling. And I love that idea. They just slicing up. You know, and it was disgusting to see the Sentinel's body parts growing back again.
yeah,
You know, one of them uses the tongue to lift itself up and things like that. I thought it was very creative. When Juggernaut he accidentally knocks Nightcrawler through the wall. Nightcrawler falls, and then the swords fall next to
yeah,
him immediately because I know his
yep,
history with swords. I was like, yes, come
yeah,
on, let's go. Yep. And then when Beast is like, and then when Logan is like, I have 6 reasons, and then Nightcrawler comes with 3 more swords.
that's
No, 9.
nice.
I was like, yeah,
It's like
let's go. Back
it
to
was so
back,
good.
fighting with each other. And you said the POV teleport was brilliantly done. And what I like about Nightcrawler's character is that on one end, he's such a spiritual, holy person. He may look like a devil, but he's very spiritual and holy, and he's all about family. He has that conversation with Jean, but doesn't mean he can't throw it
He'll
down
catch the
when
fans.
it needs to
Like,
be.
yeah, no, you don't worry about that.
It doesn't mean, when he fights, he doesn't hold back. When he fights, he goes all out, and I love that. And I think that's such a brilliant way because, again, this episode really questions, and it begins to question, is Xavier's dream dead? You could, like I said earlier in this episode, it's one thing talking about, doing the right thing, all that kind of stuff. But when you're pushed in the corner, when you're back against the corner, when everybody's coming against you, can you still maintain that dream? Can you still hold on to that? I think Nightcrawler is one of those characters that can. I think he can hold on. Doesn't mean everyone can, but he is one of the few that can say, no, let's hold on, because he is a man of strong faith. But he's not blind with faith. He's still also a man of action. He will, like you said, he will throw those hands when he needs to. Talk about Roberto and Jubilee and the family. What I like about that is picking up of last week's episode. His mom knew that he was a mutant, but she was like, oh, let's see. I don't know how it's going to affect, the bottom line of our business. Let's keep this a secret. And this really gets put to the forefront because when it comes to it, the mom would rather have her son go with the Sentinels than protect him. Even though she was having a gala, which is supposed to be, let's raise money for Genosha and help them. It goes into what we talked about last week, where it's one thing to be able to say, oh, we're helping, we're doing the right thing. When it comes to actually doing the right thing, shareholders, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So what do you think of that sequence with Roberto and Jubilee, and the fact that Jubilee's like, I'm mad at your mom, take me shopping for a new costume?
I was just when they first time like, yeah, I'm so mad here. Let's go shopping. It just plays with the fact that she's a 90s kid, and we used to go to the malls in the 90s. But his mom, I hate her. She sucks. And it was interesting to note, right? Because when the Prime Sentinels came into the gala and noticed the people, they changed their demeanor, right? They were about to get back there, and then they were like, oh, no, we're here to help. Hi, citizens. Is everything okay? Which I think, and that's one of the scary thing about this villain, right? This isn't like, those old school metal Sentinels. It's like break the window, like where are the mutants, right? Whereas these ones are very like, we actually have some decorum about this. We're not just ruthless. So I thought that was interesting, and first of all, maybe suspect that is his mom in any way involved. Probably maybe not. It just crossed through my mind because I was like, wait, were they doing that because there were humans there, or was it because of her? But that was just a thought. But yeah, I don't know. It upset me. I was just like, I was like, Jubilee, leave him. But I guess we'll see where that ends up. It's just like I said, it's nice to see a multi-dimensional villain that they're going up against. Like, this villain can look like any human. This villain can activate. Villain is as strong as you, and also knows when to not be the aggressor in situations. That's a very scary thing to come up against.
And is working with the right people, because not only is Basha working with the UN government, also working with other people that we see, working with our first MCU visual of Doctor Doom, my favorite villain of all time.
I literally squealed.
and even Doctor Doom has his limits. He says, about like, just because I'm working with you doesn't mean I'm going to forget about these human atrocities that you're doing right now. We're just working together. And we even get Zemo as well, Barrett Zemo, which I loved as well.
OG costumes.
Probably some other character they didn't recognize. Yep, in the original costumes. And again, I love that because it showcases that Bastion isn't working alone. He's got support from people in power. A lot more support. And also this also does a good job of, because you see characters like this, it kind of gives weight to the fact that this is happening in a larger Marvel universe. Usually sometimes it feels like the X-Men stories, even though it's a global narrative, it feels like it's happening in their own little corner and no one knows about it. But this episode made me really feel like, no, the effects, the ramifications are global, are worldwide. Everybody gets involved. And we see that in the pivotal scene, which got my heart. I love Valerie Cooper's speech. She says, in Genosha, I felt a lot of things: pain, grief, admiration for those who fought despite the odds. But you know what the oddest thing was? No one seemed shocked or surprised. Not even me. Yes, I was scared, but really I just had the most profound sense of deja vu, as if past and present future didn't matter and never had, because we always end up in the same ugly place. The thing is, Magneto knows us better than Charles ever did, knows we know better, that most of us experience tragedies like Genosha as a bit of deja vu before getting on with our day. But the scariest thing about Genosha wasn't the death or the chaos. It was a thought. The only sane thought you can have when being chased by giant robots that were built to crush you. Magneto was right. Oof. And the way the music kind of builds up and swells, she let Magneto free, and Bastion's all like, I don't care. She let Magneto free. And we see Magneto's true power. Enough. How did you feel in that moment?
I felt colder than he did because first of all, he was and I guess the fact that they sprawled my man all wide open in his underwear. I think that's what he was saying enough to, by the way. It wasn't everything else. He was just like, you will not treat me like this ever again. I loved it because I believe that this again, I'm gonna mess the name up. I know at the beginning of the episode they showed Muto with green powers, who was messing with the planet a little bit.
That's Magneto's daughter, actually.
Thank you, exactly. And I feel like it's all connected. I love when science comes into this fantasy because it's like, he went somewhere and like amplified. Like we don't know exactly what he's doing, but it also makes sense somehow. Like magnetism, Earth, like it was just so cool. You see why this guy is so strong, and it's so crazy to me that he's not really an Omega level mutant, right? Like I've always found like a little like gray area, but in terms of showcases of power, I thought this was literally up there with the best of them.
Yeah, no, I think Magneto in this episode as well, and this series, we really got a side of Magneto that the old cartoons couldn't really do, because I believe the old cartoons didn't even really go in depth of the fact that he was a Holocaust survivor. Kind of like the kind of footsteps around it, but never quite says Holocaust. You never quite get World War II. We never quite get Nazis. I believe this is the first time in animation we even see his Holocaust tattoos that they branded on him. Things like that. Valerie Cooper sees that. And it's a moment that Valerie Cooper's like, damn, we are no better to what was happening to this man. Has gone through stuff as a human, even before he knew he was a mutant. As a human, as a Jewish man, he's been through shit. And then as a mutant, he's been through shit. And it's the same shit over and over again. And she realizes he was right. He was right. And I love when she says, he knows we know better. That for me is the killer line right there. He knows we know better. Magneto, and Magneto was right when he says enough. And then the wave, I'm sure the ramifications of that blackout. We see Spider-Man, we see other characters, which I'm so happy when I saw Spider-Man. I was like, Spidey. He doesn't speak, but Spidey not speaking says a lot because Spidey's a talker. So if he's not
like,
speaking,
that means
shit went down. And I feel like, again, there's going to be ramifications globally, not just for the mutant community, right? The whole superhero community, the whole human community is going to be affected by this. Can those people who got turned to Sentinels, can it be reversed? I don't know. You've made a choice to have this thing done to you. Whether or not you knew how far it went, you knew it was something that would cause issues for mutants. It was fueled by your hatred for mutants. That sort of fueled it. Says like, where does it go next? How many people did this? We see on our Beast tracker that a lot of humans had this done to them. But how far does it go? We don't know. And that's the thing that makes it interesting now, because it's like, what's next? We get the return of Xavier. He returns, crash lands. I love that sequence because literally Logan's like, where's Charles when you need him? Boom, he arrives just in that time to me, my X-Men. But is it too little too late? The humans, because of Bastion, he's revealed to everyone that Charles is alive. So they knew this beforehand. They're selling it as if the X-Men were lying. And they even, because Gyrich is dead, they're even alluding that maybe the X-Men killed him to silence him. They're being framed as the villains, even though they're the ones being attacked. So what goes forward? Even this Magneto attack, that could be seen as part of the attack. You shut down all our electronics. Humans might not see it as a defense mechanism, as Magneto acting in retaliation. They might see it as Magneto starting the war. Logan even says it. He's finally done it. He's declared war. Like war has begun. I love it when Morph is like, oh, he saved us? No, he's declared war. So it's like, where does it go now? Oh, I have no idea, because can you still hold on? Because even a character like Beast, he's losing faith in Xavier's dream. It's like, who's still, even though Xavier's back, who's he returning to? Who's still going to be on his side? Who's going to agree with him and say, yes, let's fight for the right thing? Who's the villain? Is Magneto a villain again? or is he still in the right place? You know, what's
And even like what version of Professor is this? Like we're assuming he is his same old self, but I feel like the vision he got with Gambit had to shake him a little bit. Right? Like even if he's the same professor, he's
yeah,
definitely
yeah, of
come
course.
back with like he's definitely gonna blame himself for being away. As do I, by the way. He
Yeah.
can't just like, oh, to me, my X-Men. How about sorry? How about hey guys, I missed you. I brought you back some space candy, right? It's just going back. Yeah, I definitely give him a side eye when he walked in. Like, sir, you're like
Yeah,
you're 3 episodes too late. But anyway, better late than never.
right,
And
right.
I can't wait for Magneto to see him and like both be happy and then immediately like, oh, dude, don't start with me again. By the way, like, don't even tell me. Don't talk about mercy. Don't talk about peace. I don't want to hear it. These guys had me in my underwear. Strung up. You weren't there, Charles.
I read somewhere on the internet, someone wrote, um, "You have Elf on the Shelf. This show gave us Magneto and a speeder."
It really did. I was just like, yeah, this is like Mr. the King. Yeah, like it was. Oh, it
Right,
felt
right.
so good. So I can't wait to just see exactly like it's funny that Charles is back at this time because you mentioned it. Like you just keep wondering like the theme of are his teachings even getting anywhere? Is the dream of Charles dying? Like what was the whole point? And I think it's going to be interesting to just see how he helps bring everybody back from the brink a little bit. Also, Storm,
Mhm.
who I believe is flying over. I mean, again, I just
She has to be.
I wish I had a GPS to just track people, but I assume she's on her way and is going to show up at the right time. But it was like you said,
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
want to see the extent of Bastian's plan because I'm impressed with the way they even used the Charles news, right? Like they didn't see
Yeah,
him be live, like freak out. It was like, oh, okay, let's see the X-Men live, like
yeah,
immediately,
yeah.
right? Like and they didn't even waste any time. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how the dynamic works out. I'm excited.
Before we close out, just some moments I liked. When in the opening, when Cable's talking about the future, I love when Morph says, "Oh, so another dystopian future where Logan's the last to die."
That was funny
I
though.
love that.
Like, oh god, here we go again.
Logan, it's it's always Logan. He's always the last to die. But I do like what Cable said. It's like, no, not dystopia, a utopia. Xavier's dream
Yeah,
came true. Mutants usher in a bright and peaceful future. But we were the humans. Mutants were the backbone. They created the bright future for humans. You know, I thought that's
yeah,
interesting future where it's like the future is great and amazing because again, it's like our own history, right? Like you look at American history with how America was built off the back of African Americans, Chinese labor, and things like that. You know, they're the ones suffering. They came here, to promise a better life, but you made the better life
so,
for
yep,
others,
not for them.
not for you. And I thought that was a nice line. There's a line where Roberta's mother talking about getting people to pay money for the Genosha fundraiser she was doing, and she's like, "Bring 15 cases of wine, checks with sloppy signatures,
Yeah, that
still
was
give
funny.
cash." I think that's very telling of the kind of person that she is. When Sinister's talking to Dr. Cooper, and she mentions that she was very similar to Dr. Mangali, who was a
Yep,
famous in real
that's a
life
guy.
Nazi doctor, and Sinister's like, Shh, he was nothing. He could have been much more, but he settled to being a Nazi pup. I'm using Bastion. Pig pens brimming with mutant test subject. That's
This
my
is the
dream.
worst.
I
It's
just
the
love that
worst.
Sinister. He lives
Yeah,
his name.
yeah,
There's no
no, not
redemption.
at all.
Like I feel like Bastion could get redemption
Hundred
before
percent.
Sinister.
Like you feel like as a kid he tried, right? Like he was haunted by these memories and he's probably just living out what's in his head. Whereas
Right, right.
Sinister is literally the worst. So,
Like he just wants to experiment. And the thing is, it's not like he has a
yeah,
real goal. Really,
like
he
yeah,
just wants to see what
life skill.
happens when I tweak an experiment. Just let me
He's
just do
so
my work.
terrible.
That's all. I liked when Bastion says to Cooper, "You sound like a dinosaur fretting the fate of an asteroid before impact." And she said, "I'm more concerned you're
Mhm.
the asteroid."
And he
It's like,
smiled.
oof.
Remember, if you, I remember like he just smirked
Yeah.
like you got me. Oh, so
like,
good, so good.
like, oh, you're
Uh,
not wrong. Anything else that you want to mention that we haven't talked about?
no, I think that's really it. Like I really can't wait to see where where this is going because each episode has surpassed the previous in some ways or in many ways.
Yep.
Because I keep my not educating my wife. I keep her abreast of some of the characters you may not know. I remember when we saw Omega Red,
It,
and I was like,
it,
"Oh, Wolverine is gonna be so stressed." Like, after all this is said and done, you're gonna have Omega Red running around. Like, oh my,
I was going to say that. I was going to say, what do you think Omega Red has been reactivated? Is that another threat? It's like, come on. Just before we're
why?
dealing with this threat, it's almost like overlapping threats,
That's the theme of
right?
X-Men, right? Because I'm really waiting again. I'm waiting for the end of episode 10 after they've resolved this fight. I'm waiting for Apocalypse to show up because he should like
Right?
that. You can never ever forget that there's always another there's another villain
Right.
behind the villain that you're fighting. Yeah, it's so much.
I look at Apocalypse almost like, I don't know if you've seen the recent movie Godzilla
Oh
Minus
yeah,
One.
actually.
The oh no, you should watch that movie. It's a great movie. The whole point of that movie, the reason it's called Minus One is because it's set just after Japan is the fallout of the nukes that were dropped during World War II. They're still coming out of the fallout. They're in a negative place, and while they're in that negative place, before they can even begin to rebuild, Godzilla attacks. Like, come on. And that's why it's called Minus One. We are at Minus One, and then we get attacked. And that's what I feel what's happening here. The X-Men are being brought to Minus One, and just as they really feel that they can climb out of that,
And
boom,
anything else
Apocalypse is
too.
going to come. You're like,
Oh,
oh, come
yes.
on, let
And
us
maybe
breathe.
others,
Give
right?
us
Because I think, like you said, the whole cameos with like Doctor Doom and Zemo is just reminding us that this is a this is a global warfare type of thing, right? Like, yeah, sure, we're
yes,
facing Bastion and after
yes,
the X-Men, but Bastion is an X-Men villain, right? There are other villains out there who are
yes,
working with Bastion who are they're not going to just like let's just assume Bastion is defeated this season. They're not going to all just be like, oh, okay,
it,
oh, that didn't work. Let's go back home, boys. They'll be like, all right, on to the
right, right,
next agenda item, right? So it's just
right.
stressful. And I don't know. I keep wondering if some of these cameos, Captain America, Spider Man, if they're are these just one offs? Are they trying to just let us know this world exists, or are we gonna see an actual Avenger team? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
think the fact that they've been able to do all of these,
yeah.
plus the cameos, plus the Easter eggs, plus continuing the story from the past, plus getting some animated shots like Wolverine's POV of Nightcrawler, I there's just so much to talk about, and I commend the team behind this. I think 97 once again,
Uh-huh.
it's thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah, no, as much as I said I wish we had more time
That's
spent with Bastion's background, I think they've done a fantastic job. And they continue to do a fantastic job of giving us so much storyline in such a
yeah.
short space of time, and giving individual characters time to shine. It's not just focused
Yeah.
on one person or one character. We get a spread of character narratives, and it feels like everyone gets
Yeah.
equal amounts of time. And as much as we've said it's a good thing this doesn't focus too much on Logan, he gets his moment to shine in this. If you're gonna focus on Logan, this is how you do it. Just cool, badass action of him slicing through things in ways we couldn't have seen before. What an episode. 2 more to go. I don't know if I'm ready, because it's just, if it keeps ramping up like this, I don't know how
And
high it's
just
going to go. I have no idea. And I'm someone who's read the comics and has some semblance of where it might go, but I'm still getting surprised. And I thought it was brilliant. What do you nerdies think of this episode and this show so far? Find us on social media at The Nerdy Bunch. We'd love to hear your thoughts. 2 more episodes to go. Where do you think it's going to go? Again, find us on social media at The Nerdy Bunch. And you can listen to this podcast on all podcast services. You can listen to the audio version on audio platforms, and there's a video version you can watch on YouTube and other video platforms. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, David.
My name's English Dave, and this has been a Nerdy Bunch presentation of Something to Marvel About, where we spoke about X-Men 97, Episode 8. And as we record this, today is Star Wars Day, so everyone, may the 4th be with you, and you, Andrew.
May the fourth be with you, all you nerds.
And as always, Andrew,
keep it nerdy.
peace.